tough decisions really do begin with presidential leadership. I mean, I'm new to this town. I've never seen anything really accomplished in Washington without very strong presidential leadership, and I'm afraid President Obama has just been phoning it in here the last couple of years in terms of our debt and deficit issue.
Well, that was Republican Senator Ron Johnson yesterday. He's a member of the Senate Budget Committee speaking during Ben Bernanke's testimony yesterday. Well, Senator Johnson is here with me now from Capitol Hill. Senator, thank you very much. I appreciate you being back with us on In the Loop. And I want you to clarify or talk a bit more about what you meant by President Obama phoning it in when it comes to the debt and the deficit.
Well, did he even mention in the State of the Union address? I think there are a couple of words, maybe a sentence or two about the debt and deficit issue. And the fact of the matter is, nothing really does occur here in Washington without strong presidential leadership. And this president simply has not led on the whole debt and deficit issue. He says he's for the grand bargain, but Betty, do you have a clue what the grand bargain is? I know it sounds grand. I know it'd be a bargain. It'd be balanced, it'd be fair, but nobody knows what it is. You have to put a plan on a piece of paper. And, of course, he hasn't put any pressure at all on the members of his party in the Senate to actually pass a budget. And now Senator Harry Reid is saying he's not even going to bring one to the floor of the Senate. I think that's a national scandal. Well,
but Senator, and certainly there have been grand statements, and frankly, it seems to me that there have been grand statements on both sides. But, the Democrats have argued with the Republicans and said, look, we did get a budget agreement last August when we raised the debt ceiling. We did get caps on spending for the next decade. We did talk about limiting spending over the next 2 years. Those were discussions, and there is a budget agreement in some ways because of what happened last August. What's your response to that?
Betty, a few numbers that kind of lay out a little bit of a game plan is not a full budget. I mean, we have to start, as Chairman Bernanke said, we are on a clearly unsustainable path here. And we also have to grow our economy. So what is the president's plan? What is the Senate Democrats' plan for growing the economy? What's their plan for pro-growth tax reform? What is their plan in terms of addressing and trying to save the entitlement programs? They're not giving us any kind of detail at all on that whatsoever. And again, the president has said that he's put entitlement reform on the table. I haven't seen anything from him other than those empty words. We just have this empty vessel of a grand bargain, and that's not enough for the American people. They actually need to see a plan like the House budget. That's a real plan. That's detail.
Right. Okay, Senator, just because you were talking about Bernanke, let me just play for you, what the Fed chairman said yesterday about the deficit and about what needs to be done.
If no action is taken on January 1st, 2013, between expiration of tax cuts, sequestration, and a number of other measures, there'll be a very sharp change in the fiscal stance of the federal government, which by itself would with no compensating action, would indeed slow the recovery.
Now, that was an example of one of several like statements that Bernanke made throughout the testimony, talking about the deficit. Were you satisfied at all with what you heard, at least from the Fed chairman's side, on what he thought about the budget deficit?
Yes, because the chairman actually does understand the numbers. He understands the threats that face this economy. The CBO confirmed that as well in their latest baseline. They say if these tax cuts expire, if we increase taxes on the American economy, it's going to slow economic growth, and we all recognize we have to grow our economy. We can't do anything here that inhibits economic growth. So, for example, the chairman realized at some point in time, he's trying to solve fiscal mismanagement with monetary solutions. That doesn't last forever. At some point in time, interest rates are going to increase. That'll have a dramatic effect on our debt and deficit and our ability to spend on needed programs. So he really understands this. I know he's worried, as am I, and that gets us back to the point again. We need presidential leadership to start moving on this issue, because it's not going to be done in Senator Harry Reid's Senate, unfortunately.
Well, and as Bernanke said, I mean, he's not going to try to quarterback what Congress is going to do on the deficit. Only, the Fed can only do so much.
That will require the president to do that.
Right.
We need the president to do that.
Well, Senator, did you feel did you feel that you got what you needed to get, though, out of the Fed chairman yesterday?
Yes, because again, he told the American people that the fiscal path that this nation is on is clearly unsustainable, that we must look at the entitlement programs is the really long-term ticking time bomb. These programs won't be around if we don't do something to save them. And again, The president simply isn't leading on this issue. That's what we need to address the problem. I'm willing to work with anybody that is, first of all, willing to acknowledge the problem and work in good faith to really come up with real solutions.
But I hear
this
what you're
president's
saying,
not doing it.
It's not just the president. I hear what you're saying, but there's a stalemate here between, cutting spending, which is what the Republicans want, and then raising taxes, which is what the Democrats want. So,
say Betty, what we want to do is reduce the rate of growth in spending. Nobody's cutting anything. We're just reducing the rate of growth. And again, it's very difficult to work with, Democratic senators when they refuse to even bring a budget onto the floor. I mean, think of how irresponsible that is in a $3.6 trillion a year financial entity. The Senate Democrats won't even bring a budget to the floor. I mean, that should be a national scandal. That should get huge headlines.
Well, right. It'll go through your committee. You're confident it'll go through your committee, but it won't go to the floor for a vote, right?
What would be the point? I guess, really, I'm questioning why are we even having these hearings if Senator Harry Reid is just going to stop the process dead? What's the point? Now, I actually feel very sorry for Senator Kent Conrad because I know he wants to produce a budget. He wants to come up with something that'll save or reduce the deficit by $5.5 trillion. That's his stated goal. I want to work with Senator Conrad to do that and then bring a good product, a bipartisan product to the floor of the Senate. But Senator Harry Reid is already saying he's not even going to bring it up. Again, that's a tragedy.
But I get back to that point, though, Senator, which is that any budget is going to have to, as a Democrat say, include revenue increases. So, and there, you talked earlier about grand statements, but the devil's in the details, right? That's why we have this stalemate.
Sure. But Betty, the good news here is there's really a growing consensus about pro-growth tax reform, about getting rid of the crony capitalism, the special breaks. I mean, Republicans want to do that. We want to decrease the number of deductions, the special deals, and lower tax rates. That'd be pro-growth tax reform. But we need people to lead on that issue. But Senator Harry Reid, all he wants to do is put forward like a millionaire's tax, which, there's an interesting study just yesterday that was released in Maryland where they tried that. They estimated, a millionaire surtax. They estimated it would generate $330 million in revenue.
Right.
It only generated $120 million.
Yes.
It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So let's enact something that works. Let's enact something that actually grows our economy to create jobs. That's what this is all about.
I remember that you asked the Fed chairman that, and he actually agreed with you on that point, on the millionaire's tax. Okay, Senator, I've got to leave it there. Clearly, your passion showing through on trying to resolve this fiscal deficit. Appreciate it. Senator Ron Johnson.
We got to save this country, Betty.
All right.